Hello, and welcome to a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast. We are Dwayne Nadine Stewart, and we love any and all things marriage. You've tuned into the right place if you're looking for actionable, practical tips to help you overcome real-life obstacles common to real relationships. We're here to help you strive for a marriage as God has designed it and not as the world has defined it. Because why settle for a good marriage when you can have a great one?
Welcome to the Valentine's Day episode, and also our final installment of our three-part series called Keeping the Romance Alive During the Parenting Years. Today, we're going to talk about making sure to continue to work on your intimacy and continuing to keep that fire burning, that romantic fire burning in your marriage during the teen years and the college years. And so that is kind of the stage that we're in right now, which is pretty exciting because we've seen our kids grow and we've seen our relationship grow during that time. And if you're intentional about it and prioritizing your marriage during the baby years and then the middle-aged years, then congratulations. And, you are like at that stage where you're still growing, you're excited about each other, you're intimate with each other. And things are going well, but some situations are not like that. Sometimes we've gotten to a point where we're not prioritizing. We weren't really intentional about being intimate, right? And I think this is a time for us to start to work on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you and I, we have 6 kids, right? The oldest is 22. We have a 19-year-old. We have 2 18-year-olds and a 17-year-old and then a 14-year-old. So I think for us to say that we are in the midst of the teen and young adult years is kind of an understatement. Yeah. And like you said, if you've been intentional about prioritizing your marriage through the earlier years of parenting, then this season can offer some great opportunities for you. Great opportunities for you to build up your relationship even further. And even if you weren't intentional about it earlier on, it's not too late, right? It's not too late to bring back the romance at this stage. Exactly. In fact, it's been reported that the quality of sex and intimacy, actually, you're going to love this, but you already knew this. It actually improves when couples have been married 20 years or longer. And I think at this point, it's probably because they've been together long enough that now they realize how important it is to invest in their relationship, that they've had the conversations about what type of romance works for them. Yeah. They've figured out that foreplay happens outside the bedroom for most women or needs to happen outside the bedroom.
There's a little bit of familiarity with your spouse, right?
That's the word.
And I think that's actually so important to have. Like you know what she desires or he desires. We know what makes him hot. You know what I mean? You know what to do kind of during the morning, the middle of the day, the end of the day to show them that you care for them and that you love them. And, hey, can I get some time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's an important piece, at least that we've discovered in our relationship is just becoming familiar with each other, understanding each other, and then kind of fulfilling those needs.
And I think the key, as we've mentioned time and time again in the other 2 episodes in the series, is intentionality. Yeah. Right. At this point, we have learned how to be intentional in our relationship. Yeah. But the reality is, at this point, prioritizing their marriage may not have ranked very high for all couples. Right. In fact, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the percentage of adults 55 to 64 years who ever divorced is about 43%.
Yeah.
And since the 1990s, the national trend of divorce among adults 50 years or older has actually risen.
Wow. So basically what that's saying is that during the teen years and then during the young adult years and even after when they leave the house, that is the prime time for couples to become unfamiliar with each other, become, they grow apart, and then they end up being divorced.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to comprehend that, because if your focus, your entire relationship has been just on the kids, and you kind of neglected the needs of your spouse and the needs of the relationship, it's not surprising that when the kids get to a certain age, or when they, move out of the house, or they go off to college or whatever, that you don't even know who you're married to anymore.
Yeah. You know what I just realized too?
What?
I think, during those times, because you're so busy running around, knowing that there are some challenges that you might be having within your relationship, and then you might realize that it might be just easier to just, hey, I'm gonna go to practice, I'm gonna go to the PTA meeting, I'm gonna keep myself busy so I don't have to really address the challenges that we're having at home. It just makes it easier that way.
Yeah, people do that to escape the reality of their relationship rather than fixing it.
Right.
They just kind of smooth it over by doing what they know how to do best, which is to be good parents.
Yep.
Right. And not to say that you have to choose between being good parents or being a good spouse.
You can be both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what we're constantly preaching.
Yeah.
Right. You can be great parents, and hey, guess what? You can have a thriving, amazing relationship as a husband and wife. And how awesome is that? Because what is it that you're really trying to model for your children?
Yep. You're
right?
trying. Yeah,
exactly. Like these kids that are now young adults, this is really the time for them to see
what a marriage and a good relationship looks like, what it's supposed to look like, what should they be looking for once they go out and they're looking for their own spouse.
Right? Yeah, well, because they're at the door, at the door of that stage of their life.
How many times have you seen or met a couple that met their spouse, in high school, or met their spouse in college? Ding, ding, ding. That's us.
Oh yeah, right? That's us. I mean, when we met, we were in our teens.
Yeah.
We were the same age as our 19-year-old.
Yeah.
I think you were 18 and I was 19 when you and I met.
I
mean, that was that's just crazy.
I'm not ready for that one yet.
Right. That's just crazy. And right now, I mean, I couldn't picture any of our kids, being serious about anyone in their relationships yet, but that's okay. That. God has a different plan for them than he had for us. And we're perfectly okay with it. Yeah. Right. So there's a really good chance that someone listening out there needs, in this season, the parenting tip number one that we have for them, and how to keep the romance alive in their relationship while raising teens and young adults. Right. And that is rekindling your friendship with your spouse.
Yeah. It's so important. It is so important. And, I think this is a perfect time, because the kids are at a point where they're busy doing their own stuff. They're busy with school, homework. Sometimes they're working. They have sports and those types of things. And so that gives us a little bit more time to spend more time towards looking at each other and focusing on each other in our own relationship.
And what's funny about that, babe, is like in my coaching practice, this is something that we talk about all the time. Right. But when you think about what friendship is to a relationship, it is like one of the most important foundational components of a marriage, right? The level or the quality of your friendship with one another will help you through some of the toughest times, toughest stages that you will go through.
Yeah.
Right. It's because you can go back to your why. You can go back to the reasons why you guys even came together in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what rekindling a friendship means. And I remember a lot of my couples in the beginning, when I would introduce this whole concept to them, would, roll their eyes because it sounds so basic.
Yeah.
It sounds so basic. And I think what they were hoping from me when they come to me, not knowing what to do in the relationship and things aren't going so well, is they're expecting some mind-blowing, like, oh my gosh, this novel idea that we've never even considered. But really, it comes down to the very basics. Right. Yeah. You can't build a house with a roof first.
Right. You got to have a foundation.
Exactly. You have to lay that foundation. So if you're either one of those people that maybe, just kind of had your priorities a little bit off, and no judgment, right? Nothing against those people. We all do life differently, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
But really finding a way to rekindle your friendship with your spouse is a great first step to keeping that romance alive or bringing back the romance that may have kind of diminished a little bit.
So as you go back and you were dating and we're on the phone, and we might have been on the phone for hours upon hours, right? I mean,
remember we used to fall
silence.
asleep?
Yeah. So many times, you fall asleep on the phone, you'd be like, well, oh yeah, I'm up, I'm here, and you're like, wow, that was a good time to spend together, but we didn't really say much because we were sleeping. But it just felt good to really develop that closeness, right? And I think that is what needs to be rekindled once you get to that, after 20-year period, because if your kids are 19, 20, you've been married for a long time. But if you have not been focused on each other, there's a lot of growth that has happened. There's a lot of changes that have happened during that period of time. And now you have to get to know that new person.
Oh, yeah.
That person.
Chances are they're not the same person that you married.
They're not. So I think the focus is to pursue you again, just like you did when you were courting, just like it did when you were dating. Be thinking about, okay, what pleases that person? How can I impress this person again? Right? How can I impress my wife? Can I get her some flowers? Can I, think about some of the things that he or she likes, and bring it home to them. What's their love language? Let me do that, because I know that's going to make her happy or him happy. I mean, I think those are the things that are really important, like pursuing and acting like it's a courtship.
Oh yeah. This is when, we talk about the trips together, that time alone. You and I took our most epic trip.
Yeah.
On our 20th anniversary. Yeah. So this is so timely. This is perfect. Yeah. Right. Like you and I, our entire family had to chip in with helping, watch the kids. Yeah. I think we had 3 or 4 family members on a rotation just so Dwayne and I could take
plus friends
a trip to Europe.
Yeah.
It was like, it's on our bucket list, right? Or it was, but not that we're done yet, because I want to go back. But we spent 10 days between Paris and Italy.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh, and that was like a game changer.
One-on-one time.
It was 10
incredible.
Whole
days. It was great.
It was incredible. And I felt the connection that you and I created was unmatched. It was, as I say, like an epic time together.
Yeah. And I think the other point too, because that was so that was so needed, but it was something that we've been looking for a long time. But just kind of going back to the things that we talk about too, is goal setting, understanding what dreams, what aspirations does your spouse want to attain at this point in their life. I think those are so important to understand now. Because maybe, since there's such a big gap in between, a lot has changed, and we kind of have to revisit that, because it's important to align in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you will find is when your friendship is solid, that fuels the flames of romance in the relationship. When your friendship is solid, that's when you can have those tough conversations of what you desire, intimately.
Yeah.
Right. Like what's pleasurable to you. That's hard. That can be, a lot of couples have told me that's an awkward conversation, because if you've been living your lives in a parallel manner, you're essentially strangers.
Yeah.
Right. And these aren't conversations that you have with strangers.
Right.
But when you're good friends, you can easily have these conversations. And even if you have to laugh about them. Right.
But it also feels a little bit awkward. We're going to move to the next one, but like, it's almost like you have seen this person, say at a doctor's clinic or something like that, 3 or 4 times, and you're past the new stage. Yeah. So you can't go back and say, well, what's your name again? You know what I mean? It's the same thing. That it is in regards to our relationship. You expect to know who that person is, what they love and all that stuff. But then, man, it's been so long. It almost feels weird to go back and say, hey, what are your dreams? I should know that by now, because I know you for 23 years or whatever. Right. But it's a really important step to take, and it's really important to go back to that. Don't be afraid, because you'll be surprised at what you'd hear from your spouse when you ask those questions.
So tip number 1, rekindle that friendship.
Yep.
Tip number 2, establishing boundaries with your own children. Now, this is going to be a surprising one for some people, right? Because like you're parenting, you're raising these kids. Why are you establishing boundaries with them? And we have to remember at this age, right? The kids are more self-sufficient.
Yep.
They can drive themselves for the most part. Like, many of them can, not all, but many of them can.
Yep.
But the one challenge is that we've discovered, at least in our own experiences, also comes from the fact that kids are more self-sufficient. Yep. Right? Because that also means they're not going to bed at, consistent times, because they have jobs, they have homework, they have sports, they have their social life, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Which can make being intimate.
It's a problem. I remember curfews were at 8:00 at one point, right? Then they were like, okay, well, let's move it to 8:30 because so-and-so gets off of practice. And they need to do their homework. And all of a sudden, because 9:30 and then it's 10:00 and it's 11:00 and you have kids still walking around the house.
Yeah.
And you remember, like Dwayne has, there is a expiration date when it comes to the kids being up in our house. If you had, your kitchen work to do and you're kind of going slow with it, and it's like 9:30, I'm like, "Ooh, you're infringing on my time with my wife," and that's when I start to get a little bit grumpy, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally remember that. Dwayne would turn into the Incredible Hulk, at a certain time. Like at that point, he's like, I need my alone time with Nadine, and you kids are getting in the way of that.
Yeah.
And so he's like, look, if it's your night to do dishes or if it's your turn to clean the kitchen, you need to get that done.
Yeah.
Like, get that done, because I need to lay here on the couch with your mom, snuggling with her.
So,
right.
So the important piece of that was making sure that they know.
Yeah.
Right. Making sure communicate with the kids and make sure that they know, hey, yeah, I know that you got to do some stuff, which is great. Awesome. I mean, make sure you get everything taken care of, your schoolwork and all that. But just know that past a certain time, your mom and your dad, we need our time together too. You need to go to sleep.
Exactly. So if you've got homework, because we have, a lot of kids that were doing Running Start or taking AP courses. And so, sometimes at midnight, they're still doing homework.
That's a challenge.
And so you do it in your room. But, it's really just trying to find a balance between continuing to connect with our kids.
Yeah.
Right. And maintaining a great relationship with them, but making sure that we continue to make time for us.
Yep.
And so establishing that boundaries is so important. And, we actually had a couple of kids who could have single-handedly just completely like wiped away mine and Dwayne's sex life.
Well, I'm glad we were done having kids at that point. So that's good.
Yeah, but we had kids that they were servers in restaurants, and so they wouldn't get home until after
11.
The restaurant would close, and then they'd have to clean up, and they'd come home at like 11:00 at night. And for some reason, they would catch their second wind, right? And they would want to just talk and talk and talk. And I'm not kidding. It's like an hour later, they're still telling us stories about their day, which is, I know, every parent's dream.
I love it. Yeah.
Like, it was wonderful. We enjoyed it. We just shut up. We don't say anything. We just let them talk. And it was amazing. But, by midnight.
Yeah. I'm tired now. I wish we could have, I wish we could have not fast forward, but rewound the time a little bit and say, hey, at 9:00, we can have this conversation for sure. But 11:00.
That was when, for some reason, our children love to have those conversations. And it wasn't because they were trying to avoid bedtime, because by that time, they're young adults.
Yeah.
And so they just really wanted to connect. And
what parent doesn't want their child to want to connect with them, to want to tell them about their day and tell them stories and those types of things. It's just a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's when the whole boundaries thing, we had to establish that and just let them know that, hey, by midnight, we love your stories, but you've got
that
to
carrot
go.
just turned it into a pumpkin.
Exactly. We're turning into a pumpkin. And so, hopefully, at that time, Dwayne and I can still fit some alone time together and some intimate time together, because if not, then we're going to have to pull from the tip of getting creative and strategic, right? Of when we do fit that into our schedule.
So the last one.
Leaves us the last point. Go ahead, honey.
I love this one because I'm a big fan. I got a lot of these clothes, but it's the Nike slogan, right? Just do it, right?
Just do it.
It's so important to really just allow yourself to be free to just say, all right, you know what, we just got to get this done. Let's just do it, and leave no room for excuses. You have to be intentional about about being intimate, about connecting, about making sure that you're allowing yourself to have that one-on-one time. So just do it. Don't make any excuses anymore.
Exactly. And I think that's like the perfect tip to end this 3-part series, because it summarizes it all. Everything else that we've said, just do it.
Yep.
Right. Just do it. Just get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love that. So as far as keeping your romance alive during the teen and young adult years, we recommend rekindling your friendship with each other, establishing boundaries with your own children, and then adopting that Nike slogan.
Just do it.
Of just do it. So we hope you enjoyed our Valentine's Day episode and the final installment of our 3-part series, Keeping the Romance Alive Through the Parenting Years. And a huge thank you to our sponsor, the Ultimate Communication Course for Couples.
Yeah.
If you'd like to learn more about how you can improve your communication and experience increased trust, better conflict resolution, greater intimacy, deeper connection, and an aligned purpose in your marriage, please check out the show notes below. Have a great week, and here's to enjoying your purpose-driven marriage.
See you guys.